Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Niraj Periwal. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at eFolder and your host for today's event. Welcome to our eFolder Partner Chat Series. This webinar series brings together leading eFolder partners for business-oriented discussions. Today's presentation is the first of our eFolder Summer Sales Series. Now, I've gotten a little bit of flack from some people here internally for calling it the Summer Sales Series. They're like, hey, it's only May. But, you know, it's bright and sunny here in San Francisco. So we're going to keep with that theme, and we'll get this webinar series continuing through June, July, and August. Today we're joined by Darryl. He's the owner of CommTech Industries, and he's going to tell us all about cracking open the legal vertical with FileSync. Now today, before we go into today's agenda, let me first cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar, along with the slides, will be made available to those who are attending after the event. Now, we've got over 200 people registered for today's session, and so we put everyone in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it over your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Now, we encourage your questions throughout the webinar. We planned a special Q&A section at the end, but feel free to submit your questions in the question box, and we'll try to get to them as we go along. Now I'd like to walk through today's agenda. Today we're going to start by introducing our partner, Darryl D'Aquin, and then briefly touch on why FileSync and Share is so important in the legal vertical and why consumer-grade FileSync isn't enough for your legal clients. So, how do you convince your clients to adopt a business-grade FileSync solution with all the management and admin and security capabilities that come with it? We're then going to briefly introduce eFolder Anchor, which is eFolder's FileSync solution built to be deployed by managed service providers. And then we're going to really dive deep into a partner discussion between me and Darryl. And we'll have Darryl really share his insights into selling and deploying FileSync to legal clients. We're kind of piggyback off that, to talk about some considerations when deploying FileSync in the legal vertical, and then we'll go ahead and answer your questions. So why don't we go ahead right now and Darryl, why don't you talk a little bit about CommTech and what makes you unique as an MSP?
Hey, Niraj, thank you. And thanks for having us. Well, we've been around the New Orleans and southern Louisiana region for 25 years now, and we have quite a diverse set of experiences for a smaller company. Historically, we've supported clients and projects all over the world with some very, very unique projects. But in the past, say 10 years, we've begun fine-tuning more of our managed services offering, and today we mostly concentrate on the southern Louisiana and Gulf Coast area and support probably in the neighborhood of around 3,000 users at the moment. We do have some specialization in some professional services areas, which includes legal, engineering, and architectural.
Great. And what percentage of your clients would you say are in the legal vertical versus the other categories?
I would say, well, I don't have legal specifically broken out because they're very similar to engineering and architectural, so the professional services side. I would say that they probably are in the 40 to 50% category.
Okay, wow. So you've been using them out for quite a long time.
Yes.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, and then 4 years of partnership with eFolder. Not too bad. Cool. So let me go ahead and kind of give a prelude to today's discussion by talking about why FileSync is so important in the legal vertical. So we kind of want to touch on four main themes here. One is collaboration. So, a lot of times you've got joint clients and co-counsels, which is where, two or more unaffiliated lawyers are representing the same party in the same matter. And so even though they may not be on the same team, there's got to be a lot of collaboration between the two, sharing files between them, and then also sharing and receiving client files. So collaboration is really key in the legal vertical, and rather than dealing with emails, flying around, and getting lost in the shuffle, having a file sync solution is really beneficial. Another important thing that legal clients require is mobility. So, lawyers and attorneys expect to be able to get to their files wherever they are on whatever device they're on at any time. So, especially when you don't have set hours, it's really important to be able to get access whenever you need to, whether you're in the courtroom, in the office, or at home. Disaster recovery is also really important. It's important to be able to have things like versioning available when you've got all these important files and you've got so many people working on them. It's important to be able to recover them at a moment's notice, whether they've been deleted or they've been revised and you need to get back to an older version. So these are kind of the core themes that make file sync so important to legal clients. So, what is wrong with consumer-grade file sync? So we've all heard of these, Google Drive, Dropbox, and OneDrive. Just a couple months ago, Dropbox announced that they've got 500 million users and 4 million visitors on Dropbox, which is a pretty insane number. Customers love it. Business owners think it's savvy. And as a result, businesses have adopted consumer-grade file sync in droves. And, that's consumer-grade file sync has its place, right? It's great for, when I was in college, using it instead of a USB flash drive, sharing family pictures with the parents. It's great for that. But where it kind of falls apart is when you've got consumer-grade file sync in the workplace, whether you're a legal client or something else. And there are a lot of risks that can come about when you're using these less capable solutions in the workplace. There's data theft, data loss, corrupted data, which can sometimes happen, lawsuits. Obviously, today we're talking about the legal vertical, so that's especially pertinent to today's discussion when you've got, maybe very confidential and important files flying around and you want to make sure they don't go into the wrong hands. Compliance violations, again, very important in the legal vertical. And loss of accountability when you don't know what is being shared with who and when you're accessing it. You really want to make sure that your clients are able to keep track of all of that sharing just to make sure that the data is where it should be and not where it shouldn't be. So, our solution is called eFolder Anchor. Now, eFolder Anchor was built to be deployed by managed service providers. It's completely brandable. We offer wholesale pricing. We allow our MSP partners to mark up to really, gain a profit because, frankly, we don't make money if you, as our partners, are not making money. We offer TSA and RMM integrations, AutoTax, ConnectWise, LabTech, and of course, Anchor is HIPAA compliant. So for any of you with medical clients, you can deploy it with the confidence that we will sign a BA agreement with you. For your clients, Anchor really allows them to work without compromising control across any device, with anyone, and with any content. So we allow your clients to have the flexibility to do whatever they need to do with their consumer grade or with a file sync service, but then you've got all these business grade capabilities like remote light, like master vision, rollback, tacked on top, to really make it a comprehensive and complete business grade solution. So, just a few core features of Anchor before we dive into for part of the discussion so I can provide you with a little bit of context. Anchor is a business-grade file sync solution. Key features include secure and easy sharing, really great backup, restore, and versioning capabilities, admin features and integrations, military-grade encryption, of course, compliant with HIPAA, PCI, SOC, FINRA, all these really important, compliance regulations, and file server enablement, which is a really great feature that Darryl will talk about a little bit more. It allows you to cloud enable your client's file server. So if they got these file servers sitting in the office, but they also want to make sure that they can access the content on those file servers when they're not in the office, they can do it without having to use VPN and FTP. Nobody likes their VPN, not at least as far as I've heard. So file server enablement is another great feature of Anchor. So now that we've talked about Anchor and why it's important to deploy business-grade file sync in the legal vertical, let's go ahead and turn the page over to our part of the discussion, and let's have Darryl kind of share how he sells and deploys managed file sync to his legal clients. So Darryl, we kind of want to just have a bunch of questions that we're asking you. So let's go ahead and talk about how do you educate lawyers and attorneys on the risks of consumer-grade file sync?
Well, that's actually a good question. Sometimes that's how it gets brought up is when we're managing our clients' networks and we can show the amount of use that their staff has of outside services that they're not aware of, they begin to get concerned. And more today, we're finding that our legal clients are becoming having more restrictions based on their clients to follow some of their compliance rules. So if they're supporting the banking industry or the medical industry, then a lot of their compliance requirements are flowing down to them. And so, of course, as attorneys, they're always worried about the liabilities. So they're quick to jump on that if they think that there's concerns of things getting outside of their control and management. So it's generally a pretty easy discussion for them. They get it pretty quickly.
Got it. Yeah, that's a really salient and important point that, not only do legal clients have to deal with, legal regulations, but they also have to think about, what do our customers and clients need, whether they're medical or business or financial or something else.
And now, it usually happens for a couple of reasons. They'll, the way they begin to do it themselves because of collaborating with outside counsel, and maybe they haven't had these tools internally, or as you mentioned earlier, VPNing in has become too cumbersome for them, or they just don't get it, or they have issues with it. So they begin to sync their own files that they've been using out to, say, a personal Dropbox or box or something like that. And again, those just create risks.
Right. And, have you encountered pushback from any legal clients who say, well, I could just use email or I could use, Dropbox? I mean, what do you do when you encounter those type of clients?
Well, we certainly walk through what their needs are, and different every firm's a little different. Some are using cloud-based document management systems, but there are many that are still using basic file server management of their matters and their documents. So it's pretty easily to walk through a system today with them and show them about the compliance, the amount of user control that you can have, and even the branding, because we can now brand their access with their company logos, and all the things that you mentioned earlier, with collaborating with outside counsel, having versioning built in, giving them access from a host of methods, from virtually any device, and various methods from a client to a web browser to WebDAV drive mappings. Those have all been very valuable points to them. And then on top of that has been the ease in which you can revert from a disaster, whether it be someone messed up a file or had some problems with it and we have to roll it back to another version, or something more catastrophic like they've gotten a ransom virus that's encrypted everything on their file server, and we can now do a mass rollback to earlier versions very quickly. So the number of points in the whole solution are quite valuable to them.
Yeah, and do these needs, like the need to have versioning and master vision rollback, is it, brought up by them, or do you bring it up to them, or is it kind of a joint discussion, like a mutual agreement that we need these things?
So like a lot of IT solutions, sometimes they come up by us or by them as part of planning, but in many cases they come up because of some disaster, and then even though you may have mentioned it to them before, it wasn't that important until they realized how detrimental it could be to their business. If you recall, I'm in the New Orleans area, and disaster recovery planning wasn't very important to most people. But once Katrina hit, it all of a sudden became a very important topic to annually discuss and plan and practice.
Right. Cool. Well, great. Thank you. Next question. Yeah, I mean, did your clients have to deal with any of these risks firsthand? I know you touched on this.
Yeah, many of them have had either problems with remote access that take more of our time or delay their ability to work. Attorneys in particular, out of any of the professional services organizations, work virtually every hour of the day, and so they need to have anywhere, anytime, any device type access, because it's all about being able to respond to their customers and their billable hours. So anything that's disrupted that, whether that's been a virus or difficulty in accessing or some corruption that they have to recover from, all of those have been factors that they've had to deal with at one time or another.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Great. Sorry, and then going back, just elaborating a little more on this, I mean, what would you say there's a high percentage of the other legal clients who have dealt with ransomware, who have dealt with, shoot, I lost that old revision of that file I needed, or, oh my gosh, I shared that with somebody I shouldn't have, and now I need a way to lock down that information?
Yeah, virtually probably every user has dealt with some of those issues at some point. Certainly from a virus or ransomware perspective, our goal is to protect our clients from that, but you can never be 100%. And so so it's always good for them to know that they have a recovery method from many of the different disasters that could happen. Even problems where their office is shut down, which happens more often than major disasters, whether it be a fire in the building or low water pressure, so they got to shut the building down, or they just want to be able to work from remote places or at odd hours. So this single solution really solves all of those problems for us, and is easily manageable, easy to train them on it, and pretty well accepted.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Next question. I think a lot of people here on the line would love to know how you sell managed processing to legal clients. I mean, what do you do to really make them feel the need for it and understand the value of it?
So if you can break it down into their lost hours of billable time, they get it pretty quickly. If most of the people that are on the line are in the IT business, I think we would all love to be able to charge the hourly rates that our legal clients charge. We can't get anywhere near the rates that that they're able to garner. So it's pretty easy to show downtime and lack of productivity, and they can get a pretty quick ROI on having a solution like Anchor.
Mm-hmm. And what features especially do they find really compelling? I mean, besides what we already talked about with the versioning and the disaster recovery. I mean, do they time for things like file server enablement, being able to cloud enable their file servers?
Absolutely.
Is encryption really important to that?
Yeah, so it's really the whole host of capabilities of the solution. So the security aspects are certainly very important because they are typically are risk averse in the legal environment. So due to liability, so showing that the amount of compliance that you have and the encryption are all very valuable when talking to them. But it's that the file server enablement is certainly valuable to those that particularly are using on-site file servers for the file management of their documents, as opposed to, say, a document management system. But all of them, even if they're using those document management systems, do some level of teaming with outside attorneys for different cases. And so the ability to control that and do that within the bounds of a solution that they can manage and control is always beneficial to them. So it's, when you begin to add up all the different feature sets, virtually every one of them rings some level of value to the legal industry, actually to most professional services industries, but in particular to legal, because they manage everything generally by hours, and any lack of that productivity or increasing in that productivity can be easily monetized. So they're the most easiest ones to make a case for.
Mm-hmm. And what about managed file sync do they find really compelling? Is it just the fact that you manage it and not them, or has there ever been a situation where a client is like, hey, cool, these are big capabilities, why don't I just manage it myself and let you not let you get involved?
Sure. Well, in most cases, we are the IT department for the firm, and so there's usually an element of trust already. However, for those that have some active involvement in management, we can actually give them a level of control over the management of the solution, and we're fine with that. Actually built into the Anchor application is the ability to delegate certain capabilities to where they can manage the users, add and remove them. They can remotely wipe users that have left the organization. They can grant them access to the various, or remove access to the various ways in which you can access the cloud versions, whether it be with the client or the web or WebDAV. So usually we can overcome those, even if we have no active day-to-day involvement in the management.
Cool. And then from a marketing standpoint, marketing and sales, do you guys do any kind of outbound marketing? Do you rely on like QBRs, quarterly business reviews? Do you have salespeople on staff? How do you really get it out there?
So all of the above. We certainly include it on our website as part of our general marketing. We do email and social media and a variety of outbound marketing methods. Our sales team certainly discusses it. We look for our technical account managers that provide strategy, technical strategy for our clients. We'll include that as part of our solutions where it's appropriate for the clients. But quite frankly, today, with almost every managed services client that we bring on, we just include it in our solution and just bring it as a benefit of working with us.
Great. Cool. So let me pause for a few. There are few good questions coming up here in the question queue. That let's try to address them before we move on. Let's see. So Marcelo, I hope I'm saying that right. He says we have some legal clients and we have two features that customers are asking for: WebDAV access and permission to delete files and folders. So do you guys see typically your legal clients asking for those features?
Yeah, we use WebDAV. It's the Anchor has WebDAV capabilities, and I don't know where they are in the granularity of file control today. That our technical team might know that, or you might have somebody there on the Anchor side that can answer that. But they have a great roadmap of how that's integrating with Active Directory authentication, as well as how it will be integrating down to the folder and file level for permissions.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just shed a little bit of light on that, where our product development team is actively working on very granular permissions for Anchor, and that should be coming out very soon, actually, within the next, I think, few months. So they've been hard at work with Selective Sync that just came out. We're soon introducing collaborative web editing, which I think a lot of people, especially legal clients who are working among a number of people at one time on the document, will find very useful. And then granular permissions is another thing that the team is working on and is really excited to introduce in the coming months. So that's very cool. Cool. So let's move on here to our next question. So what, we talked a little bit about this, like collaboration and security, but is there anything, very specific to your legal clients that Anchor is really coming in handy for?
I can't say that there's any one thing. There's many things. Again, for the legal clients, it's all about access. So ease of access is probably the number one thing. And then everything else below that are additive to the importance of the solution. It includes, again, the security aspects of it, and then all the backup and recovery and versioning that it has. But I think in most cases, the things that almost with every user that rings true to them is the ease of access. And we demonstrate it, and we use it with our sales team, and in our sales calls, they'll pull up documents on their iPads or iPhones or on their Windows devices or their laptops right there in the customer's office and show them how they do it. Create a document there, give them a link to the document before they even leave. So there are many ways that we use it in our day-to-day business practices that show the value, and that resonates easily with them because they can see it, and they're also used to it because they've used it. Many of them, as you showed the statistic that Dropbox had of how many millions of users that they have. So they're very familiar with it, and it just continues to take some of those personal familiar things and add it into the business environment, but maybe a bit more restrictive, and some more features, because the file server enablement piece is probably one of the more unique features of Anchor, and that's been very valuable for us because virtually every client has a file server, and for us to just cloud enable it in an hour is great for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, with regard to deployment, because you're dealing with lawyers and attorneys, have they asked for you to help them encrypt all their files locally? Obviously Anchor will encrypt everything in transit and at rest on the server, but what about when it's on their own devices?
Yeah, so that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Not many of our clients, want to do that today, but more and more of them are. And so we see that this year becoming a bigger need. So we've added a series of solutions to work on endpoint encryption. There's lots of precedent out there about the difference it can make if you can show that if you have sensitive information and the device can be shown to be encrypted, that you don't have to have any disclosures. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the rules about that, but that is our understanding. And so I think that there's some value there in the endpoint encryption as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and especially with all the, privacy debates raging on right now, I think that's a really important thing for people to think about. So, kind of going off of that, with regard to these security needs that you mentioned, your clients often have more expertise on than you do. I mean, is it typically like a bottom-up kind of approach where you're like, hey, I need this, this, and this, and then you help them, or is it more top-down where you're like, hey, did you know that you need, this kind of encryption or these kind of security features, and let me help you ensure that you're compliant?
Sure. Yeah. Some of both happen. So a lot of the top-down happens as we either see things that they need, or we uncover them in their planning sessions, their semi-annual planning, and looking out into the future. So that is from the top down. We certainly have those discussions, but absolutely, particularly in the legal field, where virtually every lawyer is their own profit center, they'll have a need and they want to act fast or make sure they're satisfying the client. And so at times they'll go implement their own solution just to get it done, or they'll be asking for it and clamoring for it. And so from the bottom up, it happens as well. And anybody that's worked in the legal field knows that if they're a big producer, then they get noticed, and they generally get what they want. So our goal is to try to help them control it and make sure we're doing our job to keep them manageable and safe.
Great. Awesome. Okay, well, let's move on to a few more questions. I can see, by the way, a lot of great questions from the audience, and we will get to them. If not during the discussion right now, then during the Q&A section. So keep them coming, and we will get to them. So, I guess we've already kind of touched on this, but if there's anything you'd like to add, that'd be great. What specific features and capabilities of Anchor do your legal clients take advantage of frequently? I know you talked about file server enablement and versioning. So do they do things like secure sharing? Do they
Yes.
do file locking? What other things are they really taking advantage of?
Certainly those, I'll call those the secondary features, of sharing, doing team shares, particularly with outside counsel, and they've taken advantage of what, not necessarily that they wanted to, but maybe had to if they deleted a file or corrupted a file or caught a virus, then certainly we've done some recovery with them. But singularly, the best feature is that they can just work from anywhere. So, and attorneys like to be able to work from anywhere, even when they're on vacation and when they're at their summer house or their lake house or their the coffee shop, or at midnight after they've put their kids to bed and they go back to work. So I think that that's probably the most valuable feature for them that they use the most.
Cool, great. So now kind of turning it over, from your legal clients to you as an MSP, what do you typically look for in a file sync solution, and what about Anchor really struck you compared to other file sync services out there?
Yeah, so obviously any solution that us or probably any MSP looks for is one that works, and delivers on the solution, has good support, they're a good partner, and we can actually make money at it. So those are all important for us to be able to stay in business and grow and prosper. And so we found all of those in Anchor. Our engineering team looked at a variety of things across the board when we had selected Anchor a number of years ago, and they've continued to deliver for us. So that's been great, and eFolder's been a great partner for us with a variety of their other solutions that they have as well. So we still today think that it was a good decision. And I think a couple of the key things that were important for us were file server enablement and the branding, that we were able to make this a CommTech solution as opposed to someone else's solution. There were a number of them that were out there that and are still out there that are great, but then they become their customer as opposed to maybe our customer, or even if we're billing for it, it appears they feel like that's really who their relationship's with. So for us to be able to bundle it in as a managed solution from us is financially valuable to us, and it's a good solution. So they've continued to have a good roadmap, and they've been very open with their partners about that, and we've enjoyed that and have continued to get good support.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad you touch on bundling. So I wanted to ask you kind of your overall pricing and packaging strategy so that other MSPs can kind of get a sense of what you do. Do you bundle it as like an all-in-one monthly thing with your other solutions? What other solutions do you offer, or do you price it separately from everything else?
I guess we'd say we kind of make it like Lay's potato chips. We give them a few, and then they'll generally just want more. But so we'll at least bundle it and include it for core users. Each solution is different. Some that know they need it and want it completely throughout the organization, then we may include a much larger portion of the organization. But at the very least, we'll generally include it for an initial number of users for the organization, just to get them started on it, and it's just built into our monthly fee. We tend not to propose our solutions on a per user basis, so we generally just come with a total fee that is certainly based on the size of the organization, but we're not interested in getting into a per user price war, so we tend to base it on a total solution as a departmental budget.
Got it. And is that basically because, you don't want your clients kind of scared, like, oh, shoot, do I really need to give it to this person? Because that'll be another $15 or whatever per month.
Right. Well, and we'll give them options to expand it, but we try to do it in blocks based on what their needs are. Our goal is not to have somebody saying, well, you're $29 and he's $28 and right. She's $28.50. I think that you lose perspective if that's what we're focusing on. Is if we can back up and talk about a departmental budget value, in a total solution, I think you elevate the discussion.
Got it. And then from a management perspective, as an MSP, do you integrate Anchor with Active Directory, with your PSA tool, with your RMM tool? And, if so, how has that made your life easier?
Yeah, so the product really has worked well. We have not had many issues with it. We do integrate it we use ConnectWise, and so it is integrated with ConnectWise, and we do integrate it with Active Directory with our clients, as well as Azure Active Directory. So that way, if their office building shuts down, they still have authentication and mobile access, and we can still add and change users. So all part of cloud enabling virtually the entire office environment.
Got it. Okay, great. Cool. Well, let's talk about some key considerations when deploying FileSync into the legal vertical. I'm going to touch on this a little, but you're more than welcome to share your knowledge and expertise as well. Um,
Sure.
so, compliance and regulation, I think are really important considerations. Darryl already talked about, not only the regulations that lawyers have to deal with just being lawyers, but when you think about the clients that they serve, if they're serving, financial clients or healthcare clients, they have to make sure that they're using a solution that's, PCI compliant and SOX compliant and HIPAA compliant. So, I think that's a really important thing to consider. Security, obviously important. I think we already talked about that with encryption, secure sharing. Remote wipe is an important consideration as well, I think. Trust is kind of one of those things that it's not a feature built into any product, but it's kind of a byproduct of the solutions that you offer and the ways that you deploy them. So, as an MSP, my dad always tells me trust is something that it takes years and years and years to build, but then it can take like a minute to destroy. So I think deploying whatever solution you choose to deploy, making sure that you can back it up, that you really trust it, and that you can build trust with your clients, I think is really crucial in the legal vertical and really in any vertical. Mobility, again, obviously with many attorneys and lawyers working inside the office, outside the office, on whatever device they're on, at normal hours or odd hours, being able to work at any time, anywhere is really important. And then, collaboration roadblocks, I think, are also important to consider. You don't want to have to deal with file size issues, not being able to share the right thing with the right people at the right time. And, yeah. Darryl, is there anything you'd like to add here?
No, many of those things are items that we've covered. I think the most important one is trust. We work very hard to build trust, and I think any managed service provider should have that as a top priority, because any solution that you recommend, you want your clients to feel that to trust you and to feel that you have their best interest at heart. And as you say, it's pretty easy to lose that trust if you're not careful. And I would say that building that trust also means that the partners you bring in, whether it's Anchor or Microsoft or you pick it, they by proxy are giving or either helping or tearing down that trust as well. So you have to pick your partners carefully. In our case, while the road isn't always smooth with any solution, you need to be able to have a partner you can call upon. They'll call you back. People, and can get to the bottom and work together on a good solution.
Right. Great. Cool. So let's move on to our Q&A section. I know that we've got a number of questions here. Let me look here. So Stephen has a really good question here. So when you're making a pitch to a law firm, who do you approach? Do you approach, the IT of the law firm if they have an IT department on staff, or the managing partner? And do you find if they have an IT department that they sometimes get in the way? How do you navigate that process?
Yeah, so good question. Ideally, you always want to be talking to the managing partner. However, if they have an IT department or someone that's on staff and you can't get past them, then your way in the door might be to show them solutions and not necessarily your managed services. Maybe you offer them something like this as something that's valuable to them and how they support their team, and show them that they can manage it themselves, things that aren't causing them concern or feel like that you might be infiltrating. Therefore, you build some trust with them. Certainly don't violate that and go right around them, or they might cut you off. But I would say that I'd have two different approaches, um, depending upon whether they actually had internal IT, or if you're able to get to the administrator, or best would be the managing partner.
Mm-hmm. And for MSPs out there who haven't yet broken into the legal vertical, are there any tips and tricks you would, or advice that you would provide them with? Anything different they need to consider with legal clients than others, or would you say it's fairly
They're
similar?
tough clients. Oh, they're tough. Every attorney is their own profit center, so they're all demanding and kind of like a boss. So they can be difficult, but they usually or in many cases they can be good clients, because they actually generally are profitable and make good money, and so you're not usually nickel and diming if you have good firms, um, and therefore they can focus on the solution. They certainly understand the return on investment and the value of time. So some of those discussions are easier with them.
Right. Yeah, good point. Cool. So we got a couple questions here from Chris regarding the actual Anchor solution. So, and I think Darryl, this is kind of touching on your deployment specifically, so feel free to answer. How do you handle an issue when a file or folder is deleted, but nobody notices for a few months? Most file sync and share solutions out there only allow recovery for 40 or 45 days. So, what do you do with Anchor?
We can go back as far as we want. We generally start our clients with about 6 months of both deleted and versioning, until they begin to fill up their space, and we either give them more space or look at maybe reducing that a little bit. But we usually like to stay at least 90 days out. And we've actually had that problem where someone deleted something off a file server and no one knew it, and that did certainly had that organization decided to change some of their policies about what they could, which users could delete things and so forth. But they used to give everybody virtually, any access, but they learned that the hard way. So we've not had the problem of not being able to go far enough back at the moment. And the beauty of the Anchor solution is you can decide how far back you want to go. You can go back a year.
Right. Yeah, and one thing I should probably mention is that pricing for Anchor, is based on a number of things like the number of users and the number of or the amount of storage, but then all the storage is actually pulled at the partner level. So you choose to allocate, X gigabytes or terabytes to this client, this many gigabytes or terabytes to this client. So you get to choose that. And then depending on how much storage is allocated, the backups and the versioning occupy part of that storage. So it's really up to you as the MSP to determine how much to allocate to each client to allow for adequate versioning and restoration capabilities if necessary. So, just for everybody's knowledge, Darryl, how many gigabytes or terabytes do you typically deploy per client on average, or does it really vary quite substantially?
Oh yeah, it varies based on the customer. I mean, we have a total of about 50 terabytes with Anchor, but per client, it just depends on their storage needs. As an example, a law firm has lots of documents, but they're generally not that big. However, an architectural firm, an engineering firm, their documents are generally much larger, so they need more space, say, per person than someone else might need. So we really size it based, because we combine it and can make it a full backup solution for their entire file server, and it depends on how much store, how far back in time they like to go. Do they archive forever, and so forth. So it just varies widely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Cool. And then another question here from Chris, who's asking, does the solution allow for co-authoring, 2 or more people simultaneously editing the document? So as of right now, no. But the good news is, literally within the next month, the Anchor product management team has been really hard at work on a collaborative web editing solution. So very similar to what you might be able to experience today with Google Drive, Google Docs. You're going to be able to do that same exact capability with a lot of advanced features in Anchor starting next month. So we're really excited to roll that out to all of our partners.
Yeah, they've actually already presented that. So it's a good question. They actually presented it. We saw live working versions of it probably a couple of months ago. So I know it's getting close.
Yeah, we actually did a webinar in December, January, where we kind of previewed what was coming up for 2016, and one of those things was collaborative web editing. So, we're coming very, very close to releasing it. Should be within the next month, and we're again really excited to roll that out. So, stay tuned. Let's see. Question here from Dirk. Does FileSync work with endpoint encryption? Darryl, do you want to touch on this?
I'm not sure what they mean by, if you've got a laptop or something that's fully encrypted, certainly all the applications on the inside should work once you've unlocked the drive. So I don't see that as an issue. We have not come across any issues in that area that I'm aware of. But certainly whether you're using the application, the desktop application that does syncing and selective syncing down to the desktop, or if you're just going to pull up the web browser to access the files or do a web dev drive mapping, I don't see that being a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm a little confused as well by the question, but I think if you're talking about endpoint encryption, meaning like endpoint security, then everybody here at eFolder, we obviously use Anchor internally, and we have all of our laptops encrypted with disk encryption, and we're able to use Anchor as normal. And same with we all run antivirus, so we're able to run that as well without an issue with Anchor. So I think you're good on that end. Chris is, following up. He said, "Thank you. I assume you're not going to need a Office 365 account to use co-authoring." That is correct. So co-authoring, co-editing is going to be built right within Anchor. So as long as you're able to use Anchor, you're going to be able to use collaborative web editing. You don't need a separate Office 365 account for that capability. Cool. Chris, again, asking, does Anchor integrate with other PSAs, especially Autotask? The answer is yes. So we've got full support for Autotask, for LabTech, for ConnectWise, some other RMM and PSA solutions that I can't think of off the top of my head. They're on our website if you want to learn more. But yes, we do integrate with PSA and RMM tools for easy management from an MSP point of view. Cool. So I don't see any more questions here in the queue, but I think this was a really great discussion. Darryl, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and for sharing all the knowledge and expertise with our audience. I think not only do we appreciate it, but I think everybody in the audience really appreciates it too. So thank you again for taking the time and sharing all of your knowledge with us.
No, you're quite welcome. My pleasure, Niraj.
Great. So yeah, I mean, let's just thank you everyone for joining us today. Really hope you learned a lot from today's session, and this is just the first of our eFolder Summer Sales Series. So be sure to be on the lookout for more Summer Sales Series webinars as we move forward into June and July and August. So again, thank you so much to everyone for attending. Thank you again, Darryl, for being such a great guest and for sharing your knowledge. And this is Neeraj Periwal signing off from San Francisco. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye.